If you hear a little tappity 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 tap during the reading, that is Miss Halo. Let me see if I can catch her. There she is. Can you see her? She is looking out the window. There's a cat out there, and she is not happy. Not happy. And over here is Mr. Memphis Blue. He is watching the proceedings. So that's the room so far. Welcome everybody. It's actually Thursday night. I'm going to go ahead and record this early because we're taking my dad to Nashville this weekend, so I'm very excited about that. We're staying at the Opryland Hotel, and for any of you who've been there, like, it's like this amazing atrium with shops and a river, and it's just absolutely amazing. So it's kind of our first foray out on a trip with Dad. And so I hope you have a wonderful time and a great travel and all that good stuff. But obviously I'm not going to be here on Sunday for my normal reading. So I'm going to try and record this beforehand, set it up for my normal time, and if all goes well, you all are seeing this on Sunday. So hope you're having a wonderful weekend, and here we go. Okay, so this is chapter 26, our special day. So if we remembered in chapter 25, we had just finished up our true history with Biddy. We had made it back to the room. They're still kind of tired from, getting double marks. And he curls up with Bermuda and falls beautifully fast asleep, which incidentally was what I did last night. Bermuda was feeling extra snuggly, and I was taking every minute of it. So it was very cool. Okay, 26, our special day. Something was gently touching my face. Something velvety soft, but very insistent. I finally opened my eyes, and there was Bermuda, ears up, tail up, eyes wide and full of intent. Moo Moo was ready to play. I was so sleepy, but fortunately I had plenty of practice at handling this. Bermuda liked to get his wild on in the early hours in the morning. Anyway, I was so sleepy, but fortunately I had plenty of practice at handling this because Bermuda liked to get his wild on in the early hours of the morning. I summoned 2 feather dots, turned them loose, and rolled over. I was back asleep before the second pounce. It seemed like no time at all had passed, and I felt something gently touch my face once more. Something velvety soft, but very insistent. What the hell? I opened my eyes, and there was Bermuda. Ears up, tail up. He was crouched down, ready to pounce and play. Was this Groundhog Day? I was pretty sure I'd done this already. I made 2 more feather dots and blocked Bermuda's pounce, so they had enough time to get a head start. That should do it. I rolled over, went back to sleep again. A few moments later, something soft and velvety touched my face. Oh my God. I opened my eyes, and there was Bermuda staring at me intently, still riled up and ready to go. What the heck was going on? Was Bermuda really catching them that fast? I made 1 feather dot, but this time I kept an eye open to watch the chase. I watched him zoom across the room, and it hit me as I followed his graceful figure. My kitten wasn't a kitten anymore. Now he was a sleek young cat. How did he grow up so quickly? He still wasn't full grown, of course, but he'd certainly left his fuzzy, awkward days behind him. He was faster now, too. I thought he was amazing before, but somehow he'd taken it to a whole nother level, and the feather dots just couldn't keep up with my little speed demon. Surfer Dude, I called, and he slid into view. Have you figured out how to use the force rune to go faster? I asked. He proudly angled his surfboard so I could see the force rune etched on it. It had the main parts, the flying birds and the horizon line, but it also had 5 of the option dashes turned on. I memorized it, then started working on a new feather dot. I made the Lamborghini body, doors that changed into wings so it could fly, tires that let it climb walls, a laser dot in the bumper, and long feathers to add extra cat interest. This was my second version of the dot, and now it looked like I needed to make it over again. I took the speed version of the Force rune and engraved it in the hood. That probably would do it on its own, but now I was changing it. Maybe there were other things I could do to give my young feline more of a challenge. I was still sleepy, so I let my mind drift as I considered the design. Wings. Wings could only go so fast. How about rockets? How about rocket wings? I modified the doors so when they turned into wings, they had rockets coming off of them like feathers. Not only would it go faster, it looked pretty badass too. What else could I do? My mind drifted and I thought about the Centaur guard. When I'd fought him, I'd originally reacted to him like he was a car, but he turned and accelerated with all 4 feet. That gave him an amazing turn radius. What if I modified the dot so all the wheels could turn completely around? Then it could suddenly dart to the side rather than having to turn like a regular car. I finished up the changes, added in all the extra details, and was just filling it up with magic when Bermuda hopped up on the bed again, ready for action. Good luck, I told Dot 3.0 and turned him loose. Still full of energy, Bermuda gave chase, but this time it went very differently. The new Dot was fast, like crazy fast, and it wasn't just zooming straight forward either. When Bermuda pounced, it shot off in a completely different direction, and the chase took some very unexpected turns. Thanks, dude, I told him. Who would have thought that I'd go to all this trouble to get this amazing Force rune, and the first use I found for it was enchanting a cat toy. He just shrugged in a zen way and surfed off. I tracked Bermuda and Dot for a few minutes with my magic sight. They were having a wonderful time, and Bermuda was going to have to get a lot faster before he started catching Dot again. I was sure it would happen, but for now, I was safe once again from youthful enthusiasm. I rolled over, snuggled up in my pillows, and quickly fell asleep. The next time I woke up, it was the morning. Time to start my day. Bermuda was snuggled up beside me, and he was passed out, like passed out hard. He'd woken me up in the middle of the night, so turnabout was fair play. I cuddled him good, and all I got was a slight twitch of his paw, so I ramped it up a bit. I added in noisy wet kisses and deep belly loving, and finally got him to crack open one eye. I got a sliver of a glance, but it told a story of death and misery. It was a slice of, "What the hell is wrong with you?" baked in a "What damn time is it?" crust, with a generous dollop of "fuck you" on the top. I probably should have kept going to even out the scales a bit more, but I do love my furry baby. So I settled for one last extra noisy kiss. Then I hopped out of bed and started my morning routine. And I do mean hopped. I felt good, like fully rested, full of energy, blessed by the tea tree good. All that sleeping yesterday had put me back on top again. I threw on some casual clothes and joined Sandy for breakfast. She was feeling rested and perky as well. I guess our marks had settled in and now we were back to normal. We were almost done eating when CL and NL showed up. I was surprised, but happy to see them. They usually only showed up in the evening. "We've cleared our schedule," CL said proudly. "We wanted to be with you and support you however we could on your special day." "Thank you very much," I said. "You didn't have to do that, but we really do appreciate it." Today was the day we were meeting with the council. It seemed a bit early to get ready for that event, though. I threw Sandy a questioning glance, but she looked just as surprised as I was. "I've prepared special outfits for both of you," NL said. "Today, of all days, you certainly want to look your best. I've gone with more of a ceremonial martial arts theme. I thought it would look fancy for the occasion, but also highlight your deadly side." "That sounds great," Sandy said excitedly. "I'm sure whatever you've made us will be perfect. I can't wait to see it." Well, let's go and get ready then. NL laughed at how happy Sandy was, and they both hurried off to Sandy's room to get ready. NL really has worked a miracle with Sandy, I told CL after they left. It used to be that she only wore practical clothes and wouldn't be caught dead in anything remotely termed as dress clothes. Now she can't wait to see what NL's made her. Your niece is just amazing. CL beamed with pride. She brings me joy every day, and I'm not surprised she brought that out in Sandy too. Once you wear one of her creations and realize just how fun it is to look good, you can't help but get excited about what she's going to make you next. And speaking of which, he turned to me, it's time for you to get into your new clothes as well. CL was right. Now I'd worn one of her outfits, I was super excited to see what she'd made for me. I hurried to my bedroom and stripped on my clothes as fast as possible. CL opened the armoire slowly, drawing out the suspense. Then he pulled out my clothes, and I fell in love with them before I even put them on. NL had made something that looked like a cross between a kung fu outfit and a formal suit. It was shiny black with silver accents everywhere. The top had a cool double row of buttons, all of which were outlined and connected in silver thread. I had my initials, JC, on the left in a fancy script, and House Louisville on the right. It wasn't loose like a kung fu top. Instead, it was form-fitting like a tailored suit. It accented my shoulders and made my chest look bigger than it was. It pulled into the waist, accenting my slim figure, and then flared out a bit over my butt. The pants took over from there. The silver accents went down the side, but they also had little trails of silver, like roots that wandered towards the center. They looked random, but once I put them on, I realized they made my legs and butt look fabulous. The whole outfit was close-fitting, but the material flexed and moved with me. I felt like I could run a mile, or even have a real fight in it. Once again, I was blown away by the artistry and comfort of it all. I also couldn't stop looking at myself in the mirror. I wish Tyler could see me now. CL dusted me down with his feather C250, causing the clothes to settle over me just a tiny bit better. It also took care of a few stray cat hairs that had somehow found their way onto my outfit. The culprit of those hairs was still passed out in the bed, and I was pretty sure he wasn't coming with us today. We took a moment to make him a nice nest of pillows and covers, and he snuggled in even deeper. I gave him a goodbye kiss, and then we left the room. Of course, I picked up even more cat hair, so CL had to use his feather C250 again. We only had a few minutes before Sandy showed up, but she was positively glowing. We only had to wait a few minutes before Sandy showed up, but she was positively glowing. Her outfit was similar to mine. It had her initials, of course, and her collar was higher. It was a small change, but it framed her face a bit more and highlighted her beautiful features. Her outfit hugged all her womanly curves and somehow managed to look both commanding and sexy as hell. I'm not sure if John would have saluted her or immediately picked her up and whisked her away to the bedroom. Maybe both. Sandy's hair, which normally hung loose, was done up in a battle braid, similar to how the captain wore hers. She also had what looked like small silver chains braided in, which tied the whole outfit together. "Damn, girl," I told her in my best gay fabulous voice. "You clean up good. 3 snaps and a holla." I gave her my best Z-snaps formation and added in a 4th snap for extra appreciation. Sandy just laughed and bowed. "NL has blown my mind again," she said. "This looks fantastic, and yet it moves so well. I think I could really fight in this." I was thinking the same thing. I laughed and threw a punch. That inspired Sandy, who threw a front kick, landed into a punch, and spun into a back fist. Then she stood up like normal, and her outfit still looked perfect. Damn. We both showered NL with praise, who just laughed and said she was happy, we were happy. It was past our time to leave, so we calmed down quickly and were getting ready to head out when MM and his grandmother showed up. We hugged and kissed, and they said they wanted to be there for our special day too. Also, they wanted to let us know the captain would meet us later with an honor guard so we could make a proper entrance. I was beginning to think I hadn't assigned enough importance to our event tonight. Everyone was acting like this was a big deal. Maybe I should do the same. I started feeling a bit nervous, but I just let it go. As far as I knew, there wasn't anything I could do to prepare. It was better to just stay loose and go with the flow. We left our suite and jogged down the hallway. I had a brief moment when it was just Sandy and I running together, and I had a quick moment to ask her a question. This seems like a lot of prep for our meeting tonight with the council. Is this a bigger deal than we realized? I was thinking the same thing, Sandy said softly. I would have thought we'd get ready for the event tonight after supper. I know meeting the council is important, but I hadn't planned on thinking about it all day. As far as I know, we should just show up, act gracious, and go along with whatever they've planned. I agree, I said. I didn't want to say anything back in the room and hurt their feelings. I'm just going to play it by ear and go with the flow. If you think of anything I should be doing, please let me know. Same here, she whispered back. We made it to our first discussion, and Amaya and Balaji had our regular sofa reserved for us. I was worried about where everyone was going to sit, but all the centaurs said they wanted to stay in the back. They weren't really interested in the discussions. That was a Sandy thing. So we went up front on our own and sat down with our friends from House Hyderabad. I thought we might be late, but the speaker hadn't arrived yet. Welcome, Amaya said cheerfully. I must admit, I was very surprised to get your message this morning. I thought for sure you'd want to skip this discussion. Why would I want to skip this discussion? Sandy asked, sounding confused. Well, I figured you'd want to prepare, Maya said. Now she sounded slightly confused too. Most houses do. Prepare for what? Sandy asked. Now she sounded apprehensive. Your discussion, Amaya said. It's in 1 hour. Sandy got a blank look on her face, like the words didn't make sense. I have to give a discussion? Amaya and Balaji nodded. In 1 hour? Her voice was rising as they nodded again. Her blank look changed to one of pure panic. You are the head of a house, Amaya said soothingly, so you have to give a discussion just like everyone else. Oh my God. Sandy looked around the room wildly, like someone was going to jump out of the crowd and attack her. Then she looked at me. Then she looked at Amaya. Then Balaji. They were still nodding at her, and I think it sunk in even more. Holy shit, she cried. I'm giving a discussion in 1 hour. At that point, the speaker for this discussion walked in the room, and several mages started clapping politely. We need to take this outside, I said, now. I grabbed Sandy's hand, stood up, and pulled her towards the door. She just followed along as she was still trying to process it all. Amaya and Balaji got up and followed us. As we left, our crew of centaur llamas fell in behind, so we made quite the little procession as we moved down the hall. It didn't stop until we were well clear of all the meeting rooms. There was still a bit of traffic in the hall, and we got a few looks, but now Sandy could have a meltdown if she needed to, and it wouldn't attract that much attention. Fuck me running. How did I not know this? Sandy was still in the middle of her breakdown. I was wondering the same thing. She was scheduling everything, and it hadn't even occurred to me that we would have to give a talk. I was beginning to think that Sandy was a great battle mage and a wonderful mentor, but she was terrible at scheduling things. We only had a few hours to get ready for the gathering after all. I thought you were being awfully calm about everything, GM said, especially since this is your first time. The girls took over at this point, and GM, Amaya, and NL pulled Sandy even further down the hall. They gave Sandy room to rant and yet provided emotional support and encouragement. Satisfied Sandy was in good hands, I turned to the guys and we had our own huddle. Okay guys, I rely on Sandy to do all her scheduling, so I'm obviously out of the loop here. Fill me in. What am I missing? Balaji looked at the other two and then took over. The talk of House Louisville isn't just a regular discussion. Almost everyone wants to hear your story, so it's going to be well attended. Your house has been attacked, and it's going through a war, so everyone was very curious from the start. Because of that, the discussion was scheduled towards the end of the gathering. This was to give Sandy time to attend several discussions, get used to the format, and figure out what she wanted to say. It was also to keep the most interesting talk to the end and give the participants something to look forward to. I really hope Sandy wasn't afraid of public speaking, because if she was, this was going to be her nightmare. So, how big are we talking about? I asked. Are we talking packed meeting room size, or even bigger than that? House Louisville is speaking in the ballroom, so it's big enough to host everyone in the gathering, Balaji said bluntly. To quote Sandy, holy shit. Originally it was scheduled for a smaller room, but as interest has grown, it got upgraded twice. Also, the other discussions have been moved to different time slots, so most of the mages will end up at your discussion by default. In addition, they've doubled the normal time for your house's talk, so Sandy will have plenty of time to tell her story and still be able to answer questions. He paused to let that sink in. Thank goodness I wasn't the one having to give the talk. Oh, and one other thing. I'm pretty sure the Grand Matron will be there. Oh, nice. That was just the cherry on the sundae. Well, now that I know what's going on, all your preparations up to this point make sense, I said. Then my brain kicked in to all the other things we'd seen during discussions. So what are we doing for security? The hope is that since the Grand Matron is there, you won't have any hecklers, Balaji continued. She's already said they will be dealt with harshly, so it would look bad for her if she let anything slide. Just in case there is trouble, though, our house is going to be in the front row surrounding Sandy. We'll be armed and ready for trouble. His eyes flashed and he looked fierce. That is also why the captain has organized an honor guard for Sandy, MM jumped in. Sometimes an organized show of force is all you need to keep the peace. And that's also why NL went the direction she did on your clothing, CL said. We wanted Sandy to look both regal and deadly. She's a young mage compared to the others at the gathering, but she should be taken seriously. Wow, you guys have really given us some thought, I said gratefully. I really appreciate all your time and attention, and I know Sandy does too. We talked for a few more minutes, and then Sandy and her support crew came back and joined us. Sandy now had a determined look on her face. There was still a touch of panic, but she was doing much better. Jason, we need to talk, she said, and I nodded in agreement. She grabbed my hand and the two of us moved down the hallway together until we found a good spot where we wouldn't be overheard. So, this morning has been different, I said in a light, casual tone. She snorted. You ain't lying. This morning has been nothing like I thought it would be, and it's only going to get more exciting. How are you holding up? I asked. She looked good, but I wanted to be sure she wasn't just putting up a brave facade. I'm fine, she said firmly. I'm trying to treat this like a battle situation. We got attacked unexpectedly, but now we're regrouping and getting ready for the main engagement. That's a healthy way to think about it, I said approvingly. Just remember to stay friendly and informative. The audience isn't your enemy. It's the assholes that talk about rats. That's our enemy. In a weird way, it's like the audience votes for the winner, so we want them on our side. Friendly and informative, Sandy repeated. I can do that. She took a deep breath, held it, then let it all out. I thought that was a wonderful idea, so when she did it again, I did it with her. I wasn't as stressed as she was, but it still made me feel better. So what am I being friendly and informative about? She asked. I've just been getting in the right headspace, and I'm sure you've already thought about this and got it all figured out. She knew me too well. I had already been thinking about how this should go and how to win the audience over. I think you should keep it personal, I said. This isn't just a regular house discussion. It's House Louisville's first discussion. It's also your first talk, which means it's about your origins as well. So I would suggest you start with your mentor, Lydia, and how she inspired you to be a better person. Imagine when you're talking about her as if you're summoning her spirit and her support into the room. She is the antithesis of all these spark-hating mages, so it's the perfect place to start your tale. Then, talk about waking up in the head of house bedroom. Remind the listeners that you were chosen by the house itself. That almost never happens, so people will want to know what that's like. From there, just keep going with the things you know. Talk about missing Jennifer and finding out she'd been drained by Isabel. Talk about the battle in the park, although I skipped the whole reason we were there in the first place. Instead, just say they were after your charms in addition to catching you out of the house. Then go into the big battle with all the mages attacking the house shields. That was incredibly exciting and should keep everyone interested. Sandy listened thoughtfully as I was talking. That's a great idea for the flow, she said. It's really everything after the battle that I want to avoid. I don't want to get into merging my magic with John's or the Allrune marrying us. I can't mention the Allrune anyway, and most mages just wouldn't understand getting married. The battle with the Necro Golem and Big Ugly were all yours, and I don't want to get into that too much, or it might give away just what you can do. Then just don't talk about them, I said. Our house won the battles, but we haven't won the war yet. If they ask for an update, and I'm sure they will, focus on Carl and Marius and the eternal battle for power the rotten mages are going through. That should keep everybody happy. Okay, sounds like we have a plan. Sandy paused for a bit, and I could see her going over everything in her mind, making sure she had it down. We talked about a few more details and then joined our main group. Everyone was talking and telling stories, and it gave the both of us a moment where we weren't the main focus of attention. I used the time to relax and get centered again, and I could see Sandy doing the same. I wasn't sure exactly how this was going to go, but I was there to support Sandy, and that's what I was going to do. I also took the time to make sure my surfer dudes were full of magic and ready to go. Then I thought about it a bit more and triggered the duplicator ring until I had 10 of them flying around. They were going to be my eyes in the sky, keeping a watch out for anything dangerous. Or humiliating. I wouldn't put it past the responsible mages to try throwing tomatoes and eggs again. The time passed quickly, and soon we heard lots of centaur feet heading our way. It was the captain, and she'd brought 20 of her guard with her. They were decked out in ceremonial outfits I'd never seen before, and they looked sharp. They had on crisp white military jackets with light blue trim and gold braids on the shoulders. All of them had on white berets, and they were sporting medals. I had no idea what the medals were for, but they looked impressive. Each of them had a spear, and while they looked shiny and clean, they also looked sharp and sturdy. I had a feeling these spears could do damage if they needed to. This wasn't the captain's first ceremony, and she quickly got us organized. The guards formed up in 2 lines with space in the middle for those they were escorting. The captain placed Sandy in the front, of course, and I was slightly behind her. She was the queen, and I was her smartly dressed assistant. Amaya and Balaji came next. They were powerful mages from an ancient house and our established allies. Behind them came NL and CL, the first mage and first natural of the Centaur Llama Nation, and also our allies. Bringing up the rear of our procession were MM and GM. I was grinning, thinking about how much of an adventure this must be for them. A few days ago, MM was working in the warehouse and GM was weaving baskets. Now they were part of a fancy procession and showing their support for a young mage in her house. The captain moved to the front of the line and brandished her spear in the air. "Company, march!" she commanded in a loud voice, and we all moved forward. I thought we would just walk normally up to the ballroom and then add in a bit of swagger as we walked inside. That wasn't the case at all. The guards added a double step with their feet, and the sound hitting the ground was loud and impressive. The beat was powerful, almost like we were surrounded by drummers, and I felt my excitement rising. There was still traffic in the hallway, and the mages either got out of our way or fell in behind us to see where we were headed. The whole thing developed a festive air, like we were fronting a parade, and we grandly swept up into the main meeting area and then up to the entrance of the ballroom. More mages had joined us, and now the hallway was packed. The captain led us right up to the entrance where she barked out her next command. "Company, halt!" The guards slammed the butts of their spears into the ground and stood at attention. I had a great view of the ballroom, and the place was filled up. Balaji was right. This was the main event. The pause from the captain was perfect, as it gave enough time for every mage in the room to stop talking and turn around and see what was going on. The room got quieter as everyone paused, waiting to see what would happen next. Only when she held the attention of everyone present did the captain continue. "Company, parade, march!" I thought we'd been fancy and loud before, but it had nothing on what happened next. The guards stepped it out in full-on Irish clogging style. We're talking full rhythmic prancing, and the marble floors and the acoustics of the room really amplified the cadence. If that weren't enough, they bounced their spears off the ground in time with the beat and added a robust hoo-ha every few steps or so. I'd never been part of an entrance with so much pageantry and ceremony before. My gay heart was just loving it. We proudly pranced our way into the ballroom, all the way up the wide aisle, and stopped right in front of the speaker's circle. That's when I noticed that this circle was a bit different. Usually the platform only had one step, and it was anywhere from 6 inches to a foot high. This circle had 4 steps, and Sandy would be almost 3 feet in the air. I guess that made sense, as we had a bigger room and she needed more height in order to be seen. "Company, halt!" The guards slammed the butts of their spears into the ground and looked imposing as the captain turned and graciously offered her hand to Sandy. She took it, and the captain gracefully assisted her up the steps of her speaker's platform. Sandy didn't really need the help, but it was a beautiful gesture, showing respect and support, and she looked positively regal in her black and silver outfit. When she got to the top, she stood proud and strong, looking every inch a battle mage and leader of her house. Someone started clapping, and it spread like wildfire. Soon the whole room was clapping and cheering for their newest head of household. The captain was right. A great entrance made a huge difference with the audience. Sandy smiled and bowed graciously as the captain quickly directed us to our seats. Balaji, Amaya, and I were all sharing a sofa, and the 4 centaur llamas had giant pillows on the floor. The captain and 3 other guards stayed up by the speaker's circle, and they assumed sentry positions at the 4 points of the compass. I was afraid they would block Sandy, but she now stood high enough to be seen over them. The rest of our escort quickly and quietly dispersed to the back of the room. Now that the centaur llamas had gotten Sandy off on the right foot, she easily took it from there. She gave a big smile and waved at everyone to settle down. She introduced herself and then started talking about Lydia and why she'd wanted to be ahead in the first place. She talked about the difference a kind smile and a helpful hand could make to a young supernatural who was trying to find her way in a strange new world. She shifted to how she became stronger and more knowledgeable, yet Lydia continued to mentor her with no request for payment or reward. Sandy was on fire. Not literally, although she probably could do that too if she wanted. She wove in themes of belonging, mentoring, finding friends, and finding a home. She had the audience hanging on every word, as I saw several in the crowd nodding in agreement with her. She talked about the adventure of waking up in House Louisville and then losing her friend Jennifer. I'm sure everyone there had experienced losing someone, and murmurs of support swept the room when she talked about the pain and anger over the death of her close friend. When she talked about the battle at the park, the room rumbled in anger. They wanted to be there to crush Isabel all over again. That led to the attack on the house, and Sandy described the battle in full detail. At this point, the curious mages couldn't contain themselves, and the questions started. They wanted to know more about Isabel's golden throne, the wands used in the attack, and how the catapults had come together to form the battering ram. There was so much interest in the battle that Sandy couldn't finish the rest of her tale before the rat mages made their move. It started with a massive boom that shook the ballroom and made the chandeliers shake. A shower of sparks danced up the aisle, and General Villain and his posse stepped out. I thought it was just an imitation of what the Grand Matron did, but it was effective and got everyone's attention. Amaya and her house were fast. Before the sparks settled, they were on their feet and surrounding the speaker circle. My surfer dude sounded the alarm, but by that time it was already obvious something was up. Liar! General Villain's powerful voice rang out and filled the room. Harlot! He paused. Everyone was paying attention to him now. And unworthy. She is unworthy to stand on that stage. She is unworthy to lead a house. She is unworthy to be part of this group of esteemed mages. He paused again for effect. Most of all, she is unworthy to even be a part of this house. The room gasped, and then a familiar presence slammed down. Suddenly I felt like I was swimming through honey, and it was hard to breathe. The Grand Matron stood up from her seat at the back of the ballroom and casually strolled up to the front. Everyone quickly got out of her way, and once she had everyone's attention, she pulled her magic back in. It looked like General Villain was going to start talking again, but she raised a finger in warning, and he shut up. She stopped in the main aisle, halfway between Sandy and the General. She took a moment to look him over slowly. His jaw clenched, and he didn't look happy that he'd lost his momentum. Victor. She said his name like he was a naughty schoolboy, and she was sick and tired of his shenanigans. Her voice didn't boom out like the General's, but I was sure that everybody there could hear her just fine. I thought I'd spoken clearly, that there would be no more interruptions, and there would be no more propaganda. He took a deep breath and looked around like he was going to start a grand speech, but the matron raised a finger in warning, and he shut up again. I assume you have enough mind to understand these simple instructions. A simple yes or no will do. Yes, he admitted grudgingly. Then how do you explain yourself? Be brief and do not try my patience. If you start one of your sermons, I will go straight to punishment. I loved it. She was handling him like a pro. He'd come in here ready to beguile the room with his words, and she'd cut him off at the knees. My words are not false, Gamila, he growled. That woman is a harlot, a liar, and unworthy of her house. As a head of household myself, it is my sworn duty to defend the houses, and that is why I am here today. She's a danger to us and must be removed. I have questions to ask her, and if she responds in truth, you will discover that what I say is correct and remove her yourself. The Grand Matron gave him another slow look, and then turned to Sandy. Victor of House Cahokia has leveled accusations at you. This is your discussion, so it is not the usual time or place for something like this. However, the words have been spoken and may not be unheard. It is now your choice how you handle this. You may address it here, or we can address it after your discussion in a more private setting. Sandy shot me a quick glance, and I nodded. I had heard and seen how the magic world operated on strength. Prison rules were in effect, and when you got challenged in the yard, you better not back down. Sandy needed to fight like hell and shank this bastard. Metaphorically speaking, of course. I have conducted myself with honor, Sandy stated clearly. I am not perfect, nobody is, but I've done my best for my house and those in it. I have nothing to be ashamed of. I have nothing to hide. Let the light of truth shine upon me today and banish those with falsehood and lies. Your choice is noted, Gamila said, and turned back to face Victor the villain. Ask your questions. She stepped to the side of the aisle so Victor and Sandy could see each other. He cleared his throat, straightened his shoulders, and gave the room a commanding look. He was ready to launch into a passionate speech when the Grand Matron interrupted him again. Victor, he glared at her. Keep your questions brief and to the point. My time is precious, and I do not like wasting it on frivolous opinions." He stared daggers at her while she looked back sweetly. Her interruptions were driving him wild. I'm sure he was used to his lackeys hanging on every word he uttered. "This woman is a harlot," he stated. He paused, letting the statement hang in the air while he gathered himself again. At her previous house, she saw a man of power, and she coveted his magic. He was in a vulnerable position, as we all are from time to time, and she saw her opportunity. This rat attached herself to him. She slipped into his mind and bewitched him. She worked her womanly wiles, and once he was under her spell, she used him. She mated with him over and over, draining his hard-earned power and taking it for herself. Because of this, she grew stronger. She grew faster than she should. This caused the house to take notice, and when she came to Louisville, she brought her meal ticket with her. She continued to consume him, and one day when he was nearly defenseless, she saw her opportunity. He had risked his life to save her, and in exchange, she betrayed him. "Is there a question here?" Camilla interrupted him again. "My question," Victor thundered, "is do you or do you not deny that you have linked your magic with John? That you have taken his supernatural inheritance for your own?" He finished his words with a flourish as he glared at Sandy. Righteous indignation poured out of him. He kept his words short but impactful, and now all eyes shifted to Sandy. To everyone else, I'm sure she looked calm and composed. To me, I could tell she was furious. She was too still and her eyes were too wide. She was in battle mode, and this asshole had just attacked her and John's relationship. I'm sure she would have blasted him on the spot if she could, but this war was fought with words and attitude. It wouldn't do to let General Villain know he'd gotten to her. "First, let's talk about word choice," she said, in a calm and patronizing tone. "Harlot is an old-fashioned term for a woman who has sex. In case you haven't noticed, we've all had sex." She gestured at the audience and got a slight chuckle. "I'm sure our esteemed Grand Matron has had her fair share of willing partners." Camilla smiled and nodded her head. "Yet I don't hear you calling her a harlot." "I'm sure you've forgotten, but sex is a wonderful thing. It's natural, fun, a joyful expression of life. It leaves you relaxed and clear-headed. Maybe you should try it and see if it helps you with all this hostility and attention." She gestured in his direction like he smelled bad and needed a bath. "As for having sex with someone more powerful than you, I believe it is called trading up. And from what I hear, it is the game to play during the gathering. I'm sure we've had lots of successful and happy mages in the room with us today. Can I get a show of hands from those who've traded up in the last few days?" A few enthusiastic hands flew up around the room. Then a lot more slower but equally sure hands joined them. There were quite a few smiles around the room as everybody looked around to see who'd gotten lucky. It took a moment, but soon almost 3/4 of the room had their hands in the air. "You all are harlots," Sandy said playfully, and her audience laughed. "Harlots also has a darker meaning." Her tone turned ominous. It was a term used back in the day to shame powerful women. Harlot implied that men could do whatever they wanted, but women needed to be kept in their place, to be kept down. They needed to be on a leash. She was borrowing the same tone and cadence Victor used when he mesmerized a room. I'd been afraid she'd hesitate when fighting a fight like this, but she was using her words like weapons, and she was slaying it. "Victor, sweetie, this is a very old way of thinking. The world has evolved since then. People have become more enlightened. Women have agency now. We own property. We run businesses. We are investors, writers, painters. We even become heads of our houses." She gave him a big smile. Her use of the word sweetie and her helpful lecturing tone was driving him wild. If I were closer, I'd probably be able to hear his teeth grinding. If you keep using old, derogatory words like this, you run the risk of being labeled old too, and not in the wise and powerful version of old. Instead, you sound out of touch, a relic, someone who used to matter and just doesn't anymore. Victor looked furious. This conversation was not going the way he wanted. Sandy had taken over and pulled the room to her side. He opened his mouth to retort, but she kept going. Now, let's talk about my relationship with John. First of all, it's none of your business. But since you are being nosy, I will say that I didn't expect to fall in love. I didn't expect to find someone so kind, handsome, and supportive. John gets me, and I get him, and I've been around long enough to know just how rare that is. John has saved me many times, and sometimes I've saved him too. After the battle with Isabel, we were both in a bad way. I knew that if I didn't act, I would lose John forever. So yes, we joined our magic. We grounded each other. It was a bold move, and only time will truly tell how it will work out. A few in the audience gasped, and a light murmur of conversation sprang up as they started processing the revelation. I can tell you one thing, and this I swear on the house. There was a bigger gasp this time. Swearing on the house was a big deal and could have serious repercussions. The house was part of us being together. It fully supported our decision on that day and has supported us every day since. The light in the room flared bright and the room shook. It wasn't crazy like when it had wrecked CL's home, but it was still a very noticeable tremor. Then it settled back down again. That really got everyone talking. Well, that settles it, the Grand Matron said loudly. If the house is good with them, then so am I. Victor, are we done here? She turned like she was going to walk away. I'm not done yet, Victor thundered. This woman is a liar. The Grand Matron turned back to him. She didn't indicate he would continue, but she didn't stop him either. Her story does not add up. She is deliberately withholding information from us. All eyes were back on him again. Tell them why you were in the park that day. Tell them what really happened between you and John. Tell them how the other golem was destroyed, and tell them how your city got wrecked while you lay there sleeping. He hurled his words at her like they were spears, and I'm sure he expected her to try to dodge the questions. Instead, she just answered him directly. You're right, Victor. I haven't told you everything that happened at our house. As every head here knows, sometimes not saying something is the best course of action. For some of your questions, I literally can't tell you, as higher powers are involved. For other questions, I'm shielding those that need it. My oath and my honor demand I defend my house, and that is what I'm doing. If the Grand Matron wishes to know what happened, I will gladly tell her in confidence. The wrong information in the wrong hands can be a very bad thing, as you have just aptly demonstrated. Again she smiled at him in a patronizing way. Her look said he was a small child, and it would be best for everyone to just leave matters like this to the adults. Now he needed to run along and play with the other children. Don't talk to me about secrets and protecting your house, he snapped back. The only person you're protecting is your house. Is yourself. I know you got kidnapped. You were taken in a simple grocery store and carted away like leftover meat. You were supposed to be this vaulted battle mage, a prodigy of your time, and you fell apart like a piece of rotten fruit. You talk about this like you're winning a war, but the truth is you laid on your back for weeks on end, weak as a kitten, unable to move, unable to defend your house. You're supposed to be a capable mage, but the only defense your house had was a weak shield and 2 mages that aren't even a year old. If your enemy had truly attacked again, you would have folded like a wet paper bag. You would be dead, your housemates would be dead, your lover would be dead, and your house would be destroyed. Victor shifted to addressing the rest of the room. This woman is weak. This woman is not a leader. This woman is gullible, and she must not be trusted with something as sacred as a house. I call for her to be removed from her position immediately and replaced by a real mage, a responsible mage, one that has the years of experience needed for the job and the power that comes with that. He then focused on Gamila. Grand Matron, you must act. He started to launch into another speech, probably to tell the Grand Matron exactly what she should do. But she raised a finger and stopped him again. His fists clenched, and it almost looked like he was going to attack her. He really didn't like being shushed. He managed to rein it in, though, and the Grand Matron turned back to Sandy, waiting her response. Getting kidnapped was not my finest moment, Sandy admitted, and getting drained of my magic was a horrible experience. It's something I hope to never go through again. A house is more than its head, though. Nobody here runs a house on its own. I saw people nodding in agreement. In our case, everyone was in danger, and everyone did what was needed to keep the house and themselves safe. We came together and we did the best we could with what we had. We are a small house, but what we had to offer was enough. She paused, and I could see she was debating whether to say something. I also have to believe that the house itself thought we were enough. It had brought in one other outside natural to help us. He helped us with the big battle and then stayed around for training. Instead of the house bringing in more support, it actually sent him away occasionally to help other houses. The house left us to defend ourselves, and we have evolved and become stronger because of it. She focused on Gamila. I'd like to talk to you more about this when you have a moment. I truly believe we've done the best with what we've been given. I also believe the house supports our decisions. We have survived and become stronger. There is no greater proof than that. Gamila walked back to the center of the aisle. Based on what I've heard today, I agree, she announced. There will be no further questions, and this discussion will now conclude. No, it will not. Gamila raised a finger warningly, but this time he continued anyway. Anyway, as the head of House Cahokia, I challenge House Louisville to trial by deadly combat, he roared. Gamila looked like she was going to say something, but this time he talked over her. It is my right. She nodded. It is your right. He looked back at Sandy. You are an abomination. You might fool the others here, but you do not fool me. You are a rat. Your house is stained by your very existence. You are a parasite upon this gathering, and I will not stand for it any longer. For the first time, Sandy truly looked shocked. I was shocked. This had taken a nasty turn. Upon my magic, and upon my right as head of House Cahokia, I declare enmity between us. I shall battle you until there is nothing left. I shall erase your memory from existence. I shall crush you beneath my heel, and my house shall purge your house to the root. Once again, the room lit up and the floor began to shake. The house had accepted his oath. Oh, crap. The audience gasped, and then everyone started talking all at once. Gamila nodded solemnly to Victor and then turned to Sandy. House Cahokia has challenged House Louisville to deadly combat. Do you accept this challenge? And there ends our chapter. I will see you guys next week.